Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show.
But before we get into the story at hand, I would like us to address a very interesting story, one that I really appreciate coming from Africa. That's the Angola story where a refinery would be built since independence. They've not had one, but the interesting thing about this is the push, the energy what's it called now, prowess that Africa is beginning to show, especially when it comes to energy needs. I do think that the global crisis has opened our eyes to how necessary it is to look inwards in refining our own products and ensuring that we do not depend so much internationally for energy needs and fuel needs.
Yeah, Joy, recall that I think that was on Thursday or Friday, we had a discussion here about how much we have to just get back to what is necessary for us to do as Africa so that we will gradually get ourselves eloped from the whole staying with the Western world, having to feed us. I think it is time for us to now get to feed them, the little that we have. I made an example of cocoa. Cocoa is so much invested in Cameroon. They have a plantation where you cannot imagine it. It could take the whole of maybe a place like maybe the entire Lube into the airport road. Somewhere probably down to, if you want to probably check, maybe somewhere up to Gosa or maybe above. That is what kind of cocoa plantation they have. But unfortunately for Cameroonians, they still have to export these to France, and then those products are redefined and then sent back to them, and they buy it. And unfortunately, again, they get to buy it in foreign currencies instead of what they use in their country.
And some of them are unable to even afford the chocolate and the processed things.
At the end of the day, you realize that we own a whole lot of these resources. We own what God has actually blessed us with. But unfortunately, we cannot get to make good use of them because we do not have what it takes to be able to get to...
I don't think it's right to say we do not have what it takes.
I know, on ground, we do not have what it takes.
But I don't think it's also right to say we do not have what it takes on ground, because again, it's political will. Dangote has proven to us that we have what it takes.
Yes, exactly.
If as an individual,
so that's why I said on ground.
If as an individual he mopped up funds from wherever he did, he was able to do it, and he has established Africa's largest refinery in Nigeria, where we have 4 refineries for years. We've been revamping, we've been working on, and we still see it at the state that it is. It means that it's doable.
Of course, it's doable.
We're not being pursued by the villagers, from people in the village. So it's really commendable that Angola is taking this step. They are an oil-rich country as well. In fact, it's coming a bit too late if you ask me. However, it's better late than never. And I think the Strait of Hormuz story, the Strait of Hormuz and the US-Iran-Israeli conflict is gradually getting exacerbated and heightened the need for all of us to look inwards to see how we can definitely provide energy needs for ourselves.
So away from Angola and maybe the story I brought up of Cameroon and their cocoa that produces coffee, chocolate, and all of what cocoa can be used
Kenya to produce. Is the same thing. Rwanda is the same thing.
So we come back to Nigeria, where we have issues with the whole Nigeria. We have about 4 refineries. None, is working. So, and we are the giant of Africa. So it calls for concern. If Angola could actually come up with a refinery that they can call theirs and then start refining, and the good part of the story is they are exporting. So it is about, let's use it locally and let's also help others. So they are exporting. If Angola can do this, then what can Nigeria not do?
The 5th highest member of OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exports. Yes. So it's interesting that Angola is taking this step once again. But let us also move on to the Gambian story that we read earlier, where pressure is mounting on Libya over what they call treatment of African migrants, with particular concern over Gambian nationals. It's a long time coming. The Libyan route has been one that human rights associations all over the world had been pointing fingers. I remember vividly that it was really bad. It was announced really that Libyan route was so dangerous. They were extracting human organs in that route. There were pirates. There were what's the call? These individuals that just attack you on the roadside, on those travel trails. So much has to be done when it comes to transnational security for Africans, because if we are unable, we are struggling with internal security. Now you're telling the government to man not just borders but pathways. Libya opens up space to the transatlantic, Mediterranean, and all of that. It's been a pathway for travel to Europe, and a lot of Africans ply that pathway. However, they are calling it illegal detention centers. That's very sad when you hear that Africans are treating Africans this way. Libya has been wrought with so many unfortunate stories. I'm just hoping that we'll see an end to some of the things we record coming from Libya. But most importantly is the fact that the Gambian government is taking into cognizance how important it is to have these conversations with the Libyan authorities to dismantle what they call the criminal networks operating these illegal detention as well. And that's what we want to see government doing, protecting their citizens.
Of course. So sometimes the big question when I see things come up like this, and I tend to wonder first, and that's why I said it's actually a big question for me. The big question will be, what is the position of the African Union in trying to see how to solve this? So we get to just see a whole lot of these unions, associations, or bodies on paper. So they exist on paper, but in reality, they're not actually working for the welfare and the growth of Africans. And it is a major concern. So in things like this, when they come up, what is the AU doing to be able to get this? It is just a concern.
Exactly.
It is just a concern.
I think we expect too much from the African Union.
I'm not putting so much on them.
I think we do expect too much from the African Union.
I'm not putting so much on them, but there are times you just need to rise up and put a stop to things. Sometimes it is just a word. You just need to say, you just pass a message to the governments of the country that is African and tell them what is happening in South Africa today. We just expected the EU to say, put a stop to this. And maybe the president will get up. And then we'll just hear that, okay, everything has actually ceased, but however, Nigerians, if you still know that you are not comfortable staying in South Africa, please return. We just needed them to stand up to say something. But I don't think it is too much for them, actually.
Okay, what would you have? Because I know the very concerning thing about the AU right now is, or rather the toughest job for the AU is that they are working with sovereign countries. The best that can happen is those fines and punitive measures like a tariff hike. That's the American way. However, it's also very important to know that, listen, what mechanism is within the AU's reach? Is it just those, we fine you, we boycott you for this, you don't attend this African event, However, I had a conversation with someone who's been advocating for the Malabo Protocol.
Okay.
The Malabo Protocol is supposed to come up and ensure that there is a regional, like an African court, a judicial system where even when governments are not taking these things seriously, we could have the Malabo Protocol, when it's ratified, it could be invoked, and you and I could even petition and say, you know what, the Malabo, I keep calling it the Malabo, now the African courts, now the African courts could wade in brought to book, because the biggest problem where we do not have deterrence is because we do not, people are not being held accountable for what they are doing. So if the African courts, we see the Malabo Protocol ratified by countries across Africa, I think it will bring an end to what we see here, like the abuse, the Libyan unlawful detention facilities as well. So that's another thing we should look into, where we have the Malabo Protocol ratified by countries. Nigeria hasn't ratified that, even though we are first to be, we're like, yes, I support this, but we have not ratified it. It's not domesticated. And so if we do not have that transnational or regional court that gives it like an international outlook to it, we will be recording this. Because if, for instance, the Gambian government, after writing, of course, for diplomatic reasons, writes to Libya to say, listen, this is what's going on, there are human rights abuses against our nationals, and nothing is done, you could petition the African court.
But again, Joy, I don't know who exactly would have to stand up to do this, if not the EU. So,
I mean, this the AU in some way, just the judicial part. Yeah, talking about real courts, real judges,
yes, of course,
and individuals who would be.
But it is supposed to be a duty of a particular body to be able to help nations in Africa to set up that kind of.
The best thing at this point is, it's not help, but urge nations to not just support in donating.
Some days ago, Joy, let me just bring in an instance. Maybe it could actually serve, for instance, in such a situation. Some days ago, I had a discussion with people, and the young man said he is actually only a coordinator, and he's hoping that his tenure finishes. And one other person stood up to tell him, you are a coordinator, and your job will only finish as coordinator.
I'm unable to respond. I'm unable to respond because I the broad. Okay. So
then that's when you can say that you can cease being a coordinator. So his duty was to actually come in strategies for an organization to run fully. An organization cannot run without a president and other executive members. So in this case, I'm trying to see how to just buy this in. In this case, the AU should urge the setup of these real-time courts so that they can now shift aside and say, okay, fine, now that the real-time court has come up, anything comes in that has something to do with African nations having issues that needs to be addressed, we are not going to do anything any longer. The court will handle it. So on that note, I'm saying they have so much to do. It is often said that whoever responsibilities is given to, he's supposed to have the shoulders to be able to wear it. So it is necessary for the AU to see and raise measures to set up that real-time court before we can now say, okay, the AU do not have hands anymore, in trying to see how to weigh into problems that comes up between nations in Africa. But until they do so, then we are still seeing them as not, coming into real-time situations as they're supposed to. So I think just my concern, because we cannot continue to be Africans' rights against another African nation. We're not to be coming together to see how to give ourselves the betterment of life that we are supposed to have, since we've actually lost it over the years.
Absolutely, I agree with you. So much has to be done in that regard as well. But before we go on this short break to get into the other conversation, I'd just like to quickly now discuss the Mali. It's hundreds of supporters are rallying in Bamako to back the ruling junta following last month's deadly coordinated attack. Now that's the issue right there. International community is pushing African countries to shun these military takeovers and junta or coups. However, we are also seeing solidarity sort of towards this junta administration. The question now goes to, is democracy working? Is this how we should enjoy it? However, when you look at going back to the AU again, the AU was established, one of its core mandates is to ensure that African countries are democratic, coups will not be recognized if there are no coups and all that. So now that we are seeing individuals support a coup, thousands of people support a coup. Of course, it is very sad when we now record the killing of the defense minister, Kamara. So it's absolutely sad. But we're seeing African governments support a coup.
Well,
African people
supporting coup. Joy, it is unfortunate that it looks as though, not wanting to sound extreme, it looks as though the African people are beginning to, realize themselves from the all whatnot I want to call it, that the African leaders over time have actually put us into. So gradually, maybe we're not supposed to support coup, but unfortunately, the African people are tired in a way. Maybe we would say that they are tired of democracy, and that is the reason we are having this happen at the end of the day in Africa. So it's happening in Mali, it happened in Burkina Faso, and but not for the swift checks that happened in Nigeria. Maybe today would have
exactly
talking about it.
The alleged coup that was supposed to happen, so, or rather that was.
But Joy, if you had gotten into the cities in Nigeria, a whole lot of persons were saying, I wish it just happened.
I don't think we know exactly what we want in the country, but it's time to go for a short break so that we can bring in our guests and have that conversation that we talked about. We'll go for another short break. When we return, it will be time to have conversation around the NDC's emergence and the strategies towards 2027. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show.
Welcome back from that. Now, the emergence of the NDC is happening at a very sensitive political moment. The opposition itself is fragmented. Parties that once appeared formidable are battling internal divisions, defections, leadership struggles, and ideological confusion. At this time, the ruling party also continues consolidating power while defending its economic reforms and government record under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, the bigger question many Nigerians are asking is this: can a new political party genuinely transform Nigeria's democratic culture, or are we simply witnessing another recycling of political actors under a different name? And beyond the excitement of new alliances and defections, are there deeper concerns? Like, does the NDC, for instance, truly have grassroots structures across Nigeria? Can it survive the internal power struggle that can cripple many an opposition movement? And is ideology returning to Nigeria's politics, or is politics still driven mainly by personalities and power negotiations? That is what we're going to be discussing on today's edition of Razep Africa. We're going to examine the future of opposition politics, democratic credibility, voter trust, youth participation, coalition politics, and so much more. Joining me this morning is the secretary of the National Democratic Congress Abia chapter, Emeka Okoro. Thank you so much for being part of the program.
Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Right. Now, I guess by first, critics have said that the NDC is riding on a wave of celebrity politicians that are joining, and it's bringing that excitement once more. But I think we start this conversation with the question: do you have the grassroots structures, or the strategy for grassroots structures strong enough to beat the ruling APC?
I will tell you clearly, without mix of words or maybe attaching sentiment. There's a new dawn in Nigeria. It's only one who is not being realistic. You understand there's a new dawn in Nigeria. a shift in the political settings of the nation. People desire change, and we have everything that it takes, both the grassroots, both the people with the right sense of mind on ground in the NDC.
Once again, welcome, Emeka. But we are concerned about when you say there is grassroots in NDC. NDC, I think some months ago, was when the president of the Senate had to sit down to read and say, oh yeah, we now have the NDC, the national leader, Siraki Dixon. And except you're saying that before that party came, you had already done some background things and then had your grassroots. So again, I was surprised. Yeah, I was surprised when I was even told by Joy that Abia State chapter, and it's a concern for me. But in Abia State, even though you are actually of the Abia State chapter, how rooted are you in Abia State?
You see, let me give you an instance of the picture of what transpired at our state congress. Now, at the state congress, the hall was filled up to the brim. And even we had people on the overflow where we had to even put up the display TV for them to actually know what's happening there. Top media giants were on ground. And that was just barely a week now when we did our congress. As a matter of fact, we did our world congresses, we did our local government congresses, and we had all the executive team duly elected through this congress process. The party is barely 2 months, yes. Though it was not the actual time we filled in for the registration. The registration has kicked off since 2017 when the party was being battled on its registration. And the INEC was stating that the logo of the party and that of the APC had a similarity. So the judge of the Federal High Court had to look into the issue and in all transparency told the INEC, you just have to keep this party on board because there is no similarity between the broom and the peace sign. They are totally...
Let me hold you up to your words. You have just mentioned right now that you have been in the registration process since 2017.
Yes.
In 2017, which party were you?
Well, in 2017, I was in the People's...
I'm bringing this to you directly because of what you said. We have been in the registration. Okay, so having said so, you said you had an overflow, okay, in your just concluded
State Congress.
Yes. Okay. Were these people actually out? I'm going to be asking this out of...
Yes.
Because politics is not an emotional thing. It is straight to the point. So people will go to the ballot and then cast the vote. But people can actually come out to see what you're doing. Except you're saying that those that came out are registered member of the NDC and you had the overflow. And if yes, they were registered members of the NDC, how did you get this mathematics or whatever? How do you put it? How did you get this data that all those that came for the state congress, till the overflow, were registered members of the NDC that will actually assure you of some sort of vote come 2027 polls?
Before now, I was in the ADC. And I happened to be the chief of staff to the National League Advisor before I came into NDC. I came into NDC 18th of April. And within the time frame of 18th of April to 22nd of April, within my own senatorial zone, I registered a total of 2,500 persons. You see, politics is local. Everyone has who they believe in. Like you can see, there are people who believe in Kwankwaso as a notable leader. There are people who believe in P2B as a notable leader. Some of us are also notable leaders in our local blocks. So when I came into the system, I had a call for a meeting, inform my people, I'm done at this particular point for these so reasons.
Right.
And I'm now in this very segment. So everyone is like, okay, leader, we move with you. So if in my senatorial zone, within 18th and 22nd, I'm able to register 2,500 persons.
That was of last month?
Yes, as of last month, before we even did our state congress. Now, picture that for other leaders within that same block. So now you can see the reason why we had an overflow in the hall where we had our state congress.
Okay, now the electoral The Nigerian Electoral Act has tightened the time frame. Unfortunately, you came in 2 months ago, and do you think that the time frame would stifle a lot of things for you in the political party as when it comes to candidates, credible candidates that would join enough and then contest under, and then finances? What do you say to people who say that you have the financial backbone? You're bringing in a P2B who does not give shishi and a Kwankwaso and all of that, but politics in Nigeria needs heavy finances. Do you have the resources that it would take to challenge head to head? And I'm not even talking about the financial inducement part of it. I'm talking about legitimate political activities.
Mm-hmm. You see, politics and political activities being witty on financial expense is as a result of what the party and the individuals in the party come up with. They are parties that run on low expense, and yet they deliver quality service. The parties who run on a high budgeting cost does not necessarily right. They don't even. Now, one of the parties that will give you a very suitable cost in terms of phone purchase and the rest of it is NDC, because NDC has decided to work on the transparent part. Okay. If you have the ticket, you have the ticket. If the people want you, they want you. Now you can, let me draw a picture for you. When we were heading to the state congress, a lot of persons were busy lobbying, throwing their monies in and the rest of it. But the entire party structure, majority looked at it. And even before the Congress did, we had several meetings, the state Congress, we had several meetings, and the people were pleased with the leadership of the pro tem chairman. And that was why, during the state Congress, a lot of leaders raised the motion and said, we are moving a motion that the state pro tem chairman should be returned as the duly elected Congress chairman. Okay. And they had a seconder. A lot of people were even struggling to second, because when you put up your leadership qualities and we look at your antecedents, people can be able to tell who is who. Now, the only problem we have in Nigeria is that we have decided to deceive ourselves. You know, the former president, President Goodluck Jonathan, said it's easy to wake a man sleeping than the one who is pretending to sleep. So it's not like we Nigerians, we don't know the right thing, but some persons just decided to deceive themselves. So that was how the duly elected Congress chairman of Abia State came on board, because people read his track records, others that were busy lobbying, giving the people monies at different hotels and this and that, they were disappointed. As a matter of fact, there was someone who collected a large chunk of money, and the person in question who was wishing to be the state chairman was like, hey, return my money, you didn't do what I asked you to do.
Oh my goodness, unfortunately, this has
so the people decided what they want.
Okay.
Right.
So it's normal in party system, okay? But I tell you, NDC is working on the path of the true picture of what democracy should look like.
And I want to hold you up there, because I think some time ago, Joy, we discussed about the ideologies of parties in Nigeria, and this has actually gotten us to where we are today. So, big one. What is the ideology of the NDC? Or just yeah, exactly. So you left the PDP, you were a member years ago, to the ADC, and maybe you had a touch in the Labour Party, who knows, and then you moved to the ADC. Today you're in the NDC. What is the driving force that moved you from the ADC to the NDC? Is it just Peter Obi, or is it the ideology of the party? And if it is the ideology of the party, what is this ideology?
Now, first, we are living at the other side, okay? When I mean living at the other side, you know, there's what we call...
We are living at the other side?
Yeah, he's
explaining we are living at the other side.
Okay, because when you said we, I was thinking...
No, we were living at the other side, the other party. And when we were in ADC, we looked at the ideology of the party, and it was truly of the African part. Now, not until the business men came into the system. I don't mean just the businessmen, I mean the political businessmen.
Okay.
Yes, those who always use money to venture and push for everything they want without respecting the rules of law. Now, when all these things started in ADC, that was when the whole litigation process, there was abuse of constitution because people want to just live the way they want it.
Is that why Peter Obi and Kwankwaso left?
Yeah, of course, that was what brought about the various litigations.
Okay, no. So I don't think you're quite clear. When you say that political businessmen came into the party, exactly what do you mean, and how did that get the party to such an extent that it's now fragmented? Because it was a beautiful coalition for some of us who were looking for a strong third force, second force, or whatever opposition that would keep this administration on its toes. We appreciated the coalition, the ADC coalition. So when you say this is what happened, please, can you be a bit more clear?
Okay, you know, when the real idea of a particular creation is not known, we get to abuse it. Now, the coalition process was just centered on one thing, and which was giving the people the right sense of what governance should look like.
Okay.
Against the operations and least performance of the current government. Okay.
Which is noble.
Now, when the coalition kicked off, we forgot about the main ideology of the party, which was baited by Chief Ralph Musu, and we now did it the old PDP stuff.
Oh.
The bigger gets it all. Now, ADC now became more of family, friend, and to some extent, I would, if I'm permitted to use the word, I'd say mistresses.
There was such a thing?
Yeah, of course. Of course. So now it now became a settlement point for people's family, people's friend, and people's mistresses. But
at that point, what do you mean by settlement? There was nothing to settle. Is it instilled the political party hierarchy?
Yes. When I mean this, it's just like draw some pictures where time to time unnecessary committees that don't even deserve to be created, and next thing you see committees being created, and you see
people you think
someone who you know is in another political space is automatically adopted into the committee, and maybe because he happens to be a close associate of the chairman or something, and it's just been announced. And we're like, okay, what of the internal people who have actually taken this party to heart? Every day they do the canvas for the party, they understand the clear picture of what you want to do. What happens to those people? So
you think you were shortchanged?
No, for me, I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't shortchanged. You know why I said so? Because I was having an appointment in the party. Okay. And everyone knows I did my own job with due diligence. I'm someone who, when I come out for a particular task, I make sure I deliver. It's just in me. It's just in me. We are Rotarians and we don't joke.
So take us back to the ideology
of the NDC.
Of the NDC.
That will give you so much confidence to say, you know what, there's difference here. You could have remained with the PDP, you could have stayed, you could have maybe joined the Labour Party. There were several other parties, but you decided to move to the NDC because there must be some ideological tenets that sit well with you.
Yes, NDC, it's a brand new party, and it's more or less like the definition of a new dawn for Nigeria. One of the major things that drive me much about NDC is our motto, which is service to the people. You see, when I came on board, I took out my time to go through the constitution of the party, and I saw the blueprint. If you watch the core value, one of our core values that interests me the most is the justice aspect. And they have been able to fulfill that part. Like, we had series of cases where some persons were feeling it's all about the money bags, and they came in to come and perform the same magic they have been doing in PDP and the rest in NDC. And trust me, the national chairman and the secretary were like, no, committees, and they created the committee to look into that very issue. And I'm telling you without mixing words that the ordinary man was listened to. You don't need to have a son name in NDC for you to be paid attention to.
It's a new party. They need to feel. They need to feel in spaces. What is in place that makes you feel like this? Because there will also come a time when this leadership will now show themselves. For now, it's a come one, come all. You don't even have a lot of time. So while it's a new party, it's something to expect, of course.
That's the problem here. We mix the reality with what we think the emotional part. NDC may be a new party, but if I tell you the personalities that are in the party, you'll be shocked. Now, if we have personalities of former reps, former senators, serving reps, and the rest of them, and you, the common man, is still being paid attention to, let's look at that part.
Okay.
The senator, for you to even be a senator, you have your grassroots supporters. And as you're moving to NDC, they are moving along with you. But we are telling you of a common man who has no godfather and is still being paid attention to on his complaint.
That's the ideology that you...
Justice.
Okay. So, I mean, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time. So, strategies towards 2027. What do you hope how do you hope to strategize in grassroots mobilization, which is most important? You already have a Kwankwaso who has a lot of following. You have Peter Obi who has a lot of following.
Yeah.
However, there are some lessons to be learned. These are individuals that came from the Labour Party that's riddled right now with so much internal crisis. We have a Kwankwaso coming from an NNPP that also got internal schisms, unfortunately. What are these individuals going to do, or how is the party going to consolidate these individuals and not make the same mistake they have made, not just in their original various political parties, but in the ADC as well?
Well, at our national convention, we had issues that were discussed, and there were 7 major resolutions which we are really looked into: the area of the adoption of the new leadership structure, the ratification of grassroots congresses, the internal democracy reform. We had the approval of the 2027 electoral timetable. Then on the 5th, we had the commitment to security and electoral compliance to make sure we do everything as stipulated by the INEC. We had the unity and anti-defection resolution, which we looked in and said, fine, we understand people are coming from different space. Those coming in from APC, those coming in from wherever, but we're able to reach a very strong consensus to set up disciplinary measure against anti-parties that may be foreseen in times to come, because definitely, you know, there are people with this ideology. If it's not favoring me here, it's time to destroy the entire district. So there are measures being put in on that. But one of the most interesting part was the 7th one we went on, which is the political direction for 2027.
Which is?
Okay, we are looking
I did a drum roll there. Drum roll, please.
We are looking at the economic reform. We are looking at the job creation. And this part of the job creation was one of the major things we kick-started at Abia State after the State Congress. As a matter of fact, Abia State, by this week, Thursday, we are starting with the Abia One Skill. One skill. One skill.
Right. This is something you're introducing.
This is the service we want to give to the people. You know, I told you initially our motto is service to the people. So you don't need to be a member of NDC. All we just want to do is to make sure that everyone has a particular skill him or her could use to...
Oh, you're already rolling out skill acquisition plans.
Of course, across the 3 senatorial zones. And we have experts on this very field.
Is it across board or just Abia State?
I'm telling you for Abia.
Right.
Okay, so my concern with that would be if you don't succeed in the 2027 elections, let's say you don't win at the presidency, will you sustain the Abia one skill? Because it's sounding more like it is actually a campaign process.
First, we will win.
Right.
Okay.
We will win the 2027 presidential election. And why I'm telling you this is because, you see, you are dealing with top professionals in the game. And once beaten, you hear the word twice, and there would not be a second defeat, but rather we will defeat every other party at the polls. Because the people are yearning for change, and the people have seen that clear change they actually desire. The man called P2B is not just about P2B himself alone, but it's about what he represents. Transparency, which is part of our party ideology, okay? He represents that transparency. The man P2B has never been unfair to anyone. Go and
to the best of your knowledge.
Go and verify.
To the best of your
and
knowledge.
that's still the part of justice. So now when you talk of the 2027, I said something clearly. I said even if the whole governance defect to APC, we are not worried about that.
Right.
Now the election of 2027 will be the will of the people versus the will of those against the will of the people.
Right. Unfortunately, we really have run out of time. I wish we could explore this even more. But I wish you all the strength. It's a fairly new political party, so I'm sure there's so much work to be done in not just because I have so many questions. You have to come back sometime because I mean it's a semi illiterate country.
Yeah.
A lot of people still would go, when you ask them, what are the political parties in Nigeria? They'll say PDP and APC. Unfortunately,
exactly.
That is what you see. For some of us who have these conversations, APC and PDP, you know. So if you have a lot of work to do, and I wish you all the strength, and I hope you indeed become that formidable thought force that we obviously really need in this country, because nobody, for a healthy democracy, you cannot have just a one-sided political terrain or landscape. Thank you, Mika Okoro, for
Thank you so much. We are taking over.
Okay. I keep enjoying the aspect where it says we must or we need.
Right, and this is where we end today's edition of RAZEP Africa. I've had a wonderful time right here discussing the National Democratic Congress and its strategy for 2027. Till next time, I am Joy Asnaye.